多謝。頭先我哋有位好靚嘅呢度會展嘅同事啦，同我哋講嘅所有嘅一啲大家要注意嘅事項，你哋記唔記得啊？聽唔聽到啊？咁細聲嘅，今日我哋嘅嘉賓朋友聽唔聽到啊？啊，咁又似樣啦！你知啦，我嘅師傅就係青紅之心大律師啦。佢咧係雖然咧就係好多 case 做啦，好斯文啦，但佢講嘢咧都係聲如洪鐘嘅。咁我希望我哋今日嘅嘉賓朋友全部都係咁，好唔好啊？OK。嗱，點解一路用嘉賓同埋朋友咧？因為今日嚟得嘅咧，其實咧我師傅都真係好多謝大家嘅。而家又係疫情嘅期間啦，真係差唔多係冒住性命危險都嚟啦，仲要今日咧落雨嘅喎，所以咧嚟嘅每一位都係我哋嘅嘉賓，我哋係好重視你哋嘅。但係亦都每一位同樣咧有雙重嘅身份，就係都係我哋嘅朋友，因為我哋都係當你好似同我哋好親近一樣，特別係同青紅之心大律師嘅。咁好啦，咁咧我都想咧就係問一問啦。我哋今日咧就係清夜捫心新書分享會，一陣間有簽書嘅環節啦。我問呢個問題，你有冇人識答先？今日呢個簽書會咧係噏乜嘢㗎？噏乜嘢？吓？冇人識時事㗎，又冇人識娛樂㗎，咪 up to you 咯。其實真係嘅，好認真講。首先咧 up to you 第一個意思咧就係我哋 up 嘅咧，真係 to you 就特別為你哋而設嘅，係希望可以同你哋分享啦，將自己嘅心咧打開傾下偈啊等等㗎。咁另外一個 to you 嘅意思咧就係其實咧我哋咧就係可以俾你哋同青紅之心大律師，同埋一陣間咧，仲有台上面我哋有晒幾個牌喺度啦，就係啲嘉賓咧，你哋可以問下佢哋嘅問題啦。咁所以咧，就係任何嘢都講得嘅。咁嗰度咧就有個箱，都可以係抽獎箱，因為唔可以 entertain 所有人嘅問題啦。咁就將你嘅問題啊，你個名寫咗喺嗰度。咁我知道咧，有啲朋友已經入嚟嘅時候咧，就將你哋嘅問題啦，同埋你嘅名咧，就擺咗喺嗰個抽獎箱噶啦。咁咧，如果你突然間諗到咧，唔緊要，隨時咧就擺去嗰度咧就 OK 噶啦，得唔得啊？咁所以咧，將你嘅問題擺喺嗰度咧就 OK 啦。好啦，咁我哋今日咧就當然啦，呢度有兩本書啦，係咪？一本咧就係英文，一本咧就係中文。咁雖然我哋係簽書會啫，但係我哋係唔 hard sell 嘅，明唔明白？係咪？咁我唔 hard sell，你哋記唔記得呢本書嘅英文名係咩啊？咩話？Yes, Reflections。我唔使 hard sell，你都記得啦。咁個中文咧？清夜捫心，我唔使黑 sell 你都記得啦。嗱，我唔使黑 sell 你都會知道呢本書就係你一拎起你就唔會放低，因為咧係好入邊咧係好多你會越睇越開心，越睇越覺得好 interesting 嘅。點解咧？點解會有一個大律師佢可以做咁多咁 high profile， 跟住咧有好難嘅 case， 仲竟然有時間可以寫書，有時間可以因為呢個書嘅內容嚟㗎，又可以周遊列國。咁跟住咧，佢又信佛嘅，咁同佢做大律師，其實會唔會有一啲衝突咧？佢去幫佢嘅客人去 defend 佢哋嘅 cases 嘅時候，咁仲有咧，其實有一個係我一路咧都覺得好難得嘅問題，或者我都即係好想向我嘅師傅學習嘅就係，如果你留心睇佢嘅文字嘅話咧，好似佢喺法庭嘅表現都係一樣嘅，佢可以將啲好複雜嘅嘢咧，係好簡潔、好簡單、好清楚咁樣咧，就係表達到出嚟嘅。咁所以咧係好值得睇嘅。咁呢本書咧，我又唔 hard sell 啦。總之，如果你買嘅時候咧，唔好淨係買中文喎，要買埋英文嘅喎。我唔 hard sell 㗎，因為你睇晒兩本，你就會知道，咦係喎，中文、英文都係好簡潔㗎，明唔明白啊 ？OK， 咁我好啦，咁啊講完我哋要講嘅。呢兩本書啦，陣間仲有我哋嘅嘉賓咧，佢哋都唔會 hard sell 特登去話俾你哋聽呢本書講乜嘅，因為你哋自己都會發現到入邊咧係好 interesting 噶啦。咁好啦，其實咧我都想你哋咧係俾啲掌聲自己嘅，可唔可以啊？哇！今日啲嘉賓朋友真係好啦，都未知點解就已經俾掌聲自己啦。點解我叫你哋俾掌聲自己咧？因為其實咧今日呢一個簽書會咧真係超值嘅。我嘅真係講緊quantify， 你可以用數量去超值。因為平時咧青紅之心大律師咧，你都知啦，佢即係開一個會啊，甚至乎做一個 case 係天價。但係今日咧佢係做自己好 中意嘅嘢，亦都好開心有你哋咁多位嘉賓啦、朋友啦，同佢分享啦。咁所以咧，今日咧，你哋可以話係超值嘅。咁一陣間咧，仲可以問問題，唔止淨係問佢喎，問我哋台上啦，係另外嘅3位嘉賓啦。咁而其中2位咧，都係有喺本書度咧係寫序嘅。咁一陣間大家就會知佢哋2位係邊2位啦。咁其中有一位咧，袁國強先生咧，就係之前我哋嘅律政司啦。咁今日咧，佢就係有事啊，就好重要嘅嚟唔到。咁究竟呢件重要嘅事係咩咧？就因為佢今日咧就係要去見阿陳茂波。咁點解咧？因為佢想知道下咧，究竟我啲消費券咧係可唔可以買到青紅大律師嘅呢個清夜捫心同埋 reflections。OK， 咁甚至乎就係可能啲消費券買到嘅話，咁佢就諗緊究竟佢應該抬100本啦，定係200本翻屋企嘅。好啦，咁呢個咁重要嘅 introduction 我哋知道之後咧，佢隨時嗱佢 find out 咗之後就會見完陳茂波再翻嚟咧，就話俾我哋聽，同我哋報道噶啦。好啦，咁我哋首先咧頭先講過啦，就係有幾位嘉賓咧係會同我哋傾下偈嘅。咁今日咧我哋唔想好似好大家好嚴肅咁樣，而係我哋真係好 friendly、好 open 咁樣傾偈嘅。咁所以咧我哋嘉賓都係會上嚟坐喺度用支咪同大家傾下偈嘅。咁首先咧第一位咧，其實我都覺得有啲奇怪嘅，因為咧青紅之心大律師同呢一位嘉賓咧，佢哋係喺成個法律制度裏邊咧係應該對立嘅。一個咧就係criminal lawyer 裏邊咧就係最 top 㗎啦，係咪？咁另外一位咧就係喺 prosecution 裏面最 top 嘅。唔知點解佢哋咧又會做到朋友嘅喎？我都唔係好知點解嘅。咁我哋俾啲掌聲歡迎江樂士資深大律師。咁佢就係香港大學名譽法學教授、國際檢察官聯合會 Senate 副主席，同埋香港刑事檢控專員，係喺1997年至到2009年嘅。Please say a few words to us. Yes. 嗱，咁我哋發覺咧，其實我哋 just be seated and just like a friendly talk, friendly chat to everybody. Because of the virus, so we have our own mic. Make sure. Our own mask.
Well, thank you very much, Murray, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, Cheng himself, the great man. Now, I first met Cheng in 1979, and our early contacts at court developed over time into what has been a rich and a lasting friendship. Apart from legal matters, we share an interest in antiques, travel, as well as writing. And I was therefore deeply touched when he conferred on me the double honor of not only writing the foreword to his book, Reflections, but also speaking at its launch today. Now, I say his latest book because Reflections is by no means his first. It follows in the footsteps of Defending the Law in 2008 and One Judgment a Week in 2014. So I am therefore reminded somewhat of the great British statesman and author Benjamin Disraeli, who, when asked by a lady admirer what books he liked reading, replied, "Madam, if I want to read a book, I write one." Now, in Reflections, we learn of Cheng's early days, his formative influences, and the amazing characters he met while studying in England, many of whom were larger than life. They came not only from the law, like Lord Denning, but also from high society, like Earl Johnny Spencer, who was Princess Diana's father, as well as from the art world, most notably his future godfather, Sir Francis Watson, who was the keeper of the Queen's works of art, and as you will discover when you read the book, was a remarkable character in his own right. Now, as some of you will know, Cheng has held several editorial positions before he entered the law, at the Far Eastern Economic Review, Asia Week, and The Guardian of London. Those early interests have remained with him, of course, and he has, since time immemorial, been a regular and indeed a highly admired contributor to Tsingtao Daily. In that capacity, he has, of course, acquired a wide following, and dare I say it, even a fan base, because of the variety of the topics that he has addressed, some of which are now included in his reflections. They cover such things as the situation of Aung San Suu Kyi in Myanmar, the fate of Chinese expatriates in Cuba, and the use of royal pardons in Thailand, all of which are fascinating in their own way. Through his columns, moreover, he has always been a voice of reason, offering sensible advice at times of trouble, providing encouragement to those protecting Hong Kong, and indicating what the future direction of travel should be. And as you will see when you read the book, he is an acute observer of current affairs with a deep reverence of history and an appreciation of the lessons of the past. However, it is, of course, his forensic prowess for which Cheng is best known, and his legal achievements shine forth in his reflections. His success, which has inspired many young barristers and did not come about by chance, but through sheer hard work, perseverance, and advocacy and advisory skills of the highest order. Although when I first met him in 1979, he was still fresh to private practice, he was fast making a name for himself and was in increasing demand among these solicitors. And before long, he had attained great heights in the profession, the counsel of choice for many who hoped he could extricate them from their difficulties, which for many of them is exactly what he did. In his reflections, he provides us with some fascinating insights into some of his most interesting cases, and also describes various aspects of local life along the way, including the Dai Pai Dongs, the cramped conditions endured by so many people in Hong Kong, and the inner workings of the Hong Kong Jockey Club. And through his cases, he explains how various legal mechanisms operate, including plea bargains, bind-over orders, and covert surveillance. And he shows as well how prosecution can all too easily become persecution, as when a sense of proportion is lost. Now, the great and the good, the crafty and the needy, the humble and the plain unlucky, all came knocking on Cheng's door. Their offences were legion, but often involved corruption, fraud, and money laundering. And even if, as often happened, they were ultimately acquitted, it is clear they sometimes sailed very close to the wind. Cheng, however, has always been up for the fight, and his fierce sense of justice shines through these recollections, as also does his regard for the great jurists of the day, some of whom he brings back to life for a new generation to relish. They include, for example, the inimitable Sir Dennis Roberts, a Chief Justice who always saw the bigger picture, and the legendary J.G. Blue Wilson, the Causeway Bay Court Principal Magistrate, whose sympathies always lay with the underdog. All the characters described by Cheng, and there are many, were people who set out to achieve justice and tried hard not to be deflected too much by legal niceties or by inconvenient precedents, an approach which has always mirrored his own. Now, I found Cheng's reflections a fascinating read, and I'm sure that you will also. His tale and his writings are both revelatory and illuminating, and should be read by everyone with an interest in humanity, whether or not in the law. His journey from colonial Malaya to the heights via England of the legal profession in modern Hong Kong is a real adventure story, and it is gratifying that he has now told it so well. So, unless you don't believe all I've told you, I strongly suggest that you get your signed copies before you leave. Thank you very much.
幾唔 hard sell 啦，總之就 get your signed copy before you leave. Thank you, Mr. Cross. Just before you go back to your own seat, I would just want to ask one question, because you and Mr. Cheng are on the opposite side of the system. How come you know so much about him that you never briefed him to be a prosecutor? 我就問點解 Mr. Cross 咁耐都冇揾過 Mr. Cheng 做檢控嘅工作咧？佢又知道佢咁多嘢咯。Have to use a mic.
I don't believe it's for want of trying. Of course, people in the private sector, as you well know, barristers and senior counsel, are from time to time asked to do cases for the department, and they're asked to enter the fees for doing a particular case. Sometimes the department is successful in securing a particular barrister, sometimes they're not, but it's a very carefully controlled mechanism, and the reason, if it be right that Cheng didn't receive any briefs for the department in my time, then it was certainly not for want of trying.
Is it because he gave you too many zeros? Took out 2 zeros and briefed him?
Far be it for me to disclose any confidences.
All right, it's private. 咁我諗咧就係因為即係 DOJ， 我頭先我理解，但我希望冇錯啦。因為每個律師咧都有佢自己嘅一啲錢啦，但係我哋呢啲嘅 category 咧，或者而家我哋呢度現場有幾多係律師、大律師咁去舉手睇下？誒，得一個咁少，冇理由嘅喎。大家都知道咧，我哋嘅 fee 係 flat 嘅。係一模一樣都係嗰啲嘅，除咗某啲 senior counsel 我知坐嗰度有嘅嚇。咁啊 Mr. Cheng 可能佢拎走2個0就會有機會做檢控嘅工作，咁可能太多0，可能拎走3、4個0，我哋都唔知。好啦，咁我哋第2位嘅嘉賓我要請謝清海先生 拿督。咁其實咧，佢以前咧就係都係做 Mr. Cross。You can go back to your seats first. Anywhere is fine. 咁謝清海先生咧，其實咧佢以前咧都係做新聞工作嘅，跟住咧就做咗財經工作喎。咁佢咧就有個花名嘅，就叫做咧亞洲嘅巴菲特，又或者咧係股壇嘅金手指。咁我唔知好彩佢咧就做股壇金手指咧。如果佢係法律界嘅金手指咧，咁今日佢就要蒙住塊面先可以同我哋講嘢啦，唔係淨係蒙個口罩嘅。OK。You have to use your own mic. That's Miss Leung。我哋今日咧係好 strict 㗎，因為咧我哋呢個 virus 嘅情況咧，我哋大家都要安全，所以咧每一個人用翻自己嘅 mask、自己嘅 mic。
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to speak to you tonight. Cheng Huan is my good friend, and we used to be journalists together when we first came to Hong Kong. Now, tonight I notice there's a lot of legal experts and very high achievers in the legal profession. So I won't try to compete with them. Instead, I propose to look at the situation from a different viewpoint, the viewpoint of an anthropologist. I believe that human beings are naturally tribal. We naturally identify with a tribe or tribes to which we belong. So to enhance your enjoyment of this book, I propose to share my insights into the tribe that Cheng Huan and I both belong to. We are overseas Chinese, born in the territory now known as Malaysia, but really it's a lot more complicated than that. Specifically, when we were born, the land was called British Malaya, including the Strait settlements, and we were British citizens. I recall people like us are sometimes known as Anglo-Chinese, King's Chinese, Straits Chinese. We are a distinctive minority. Western educated, in many cases can't read or write Chinese ourselves. And in a sense, we are like Western minds trapped inside a Chinese body and raised in the tropics. But really, it's a lot more complicated than that. This particular tribe of Malayan or Malaysian Chinese origin, with Chinese names but English speaking, we are now all over the world. Of course, we are well known for our emphasis on higher education. So among us, we have world-famous leading scientists, engineers, journalists, professors, financial writers, you name it, politicians. We're all over the place. And here's the thing. To my way of thinking, we are everywhere, but we are also nowhere. With us, there's often a sense of dislocation and an inner tension that never really goes away. And I want to help you to understand this book by explaining this a little bit. We have experienced a lifetime of being pulled and pushed from one direction to another in terms of culture, identity, meaning of life, and even which legacy is actually ours. I think members of our tribe can never be sure where we belong to in a particular place or whether we really are a guest after all. Oh, on that note, I hope and believe that for our children it's rather different. A majority of them were born in what is now Singapore or Malaysia, and I can see that they do have a strong sense of belonging to the places in which they were born. But I'm talking now about the tribe that Cheng Huan and I belong to, which is the earlier generation. My tribe is a product of a great historical displacement during our time that reflected a clash of civilizations and the destiny of nations and races. So to feel it, to smell it, to taste it, I can highly recommend Cheng Huan's new book, which appropriately enough is called Reflections. It's a very good read. Enjoy it. Try to get a sense too of its inner meaning, which is what I try to do, of our tribe, our people who were disconnected from their origins, stranded by history. And we do what we can to get by. Some of us, of course, are more successful than others. And among the most successful of them all is none other than the author, Mr. Cheng Huan, QC. Thank you very much.
I know both of you at least have one thing in common. You both make big money in Hong Kong, and you are called 股神金手指, and Mr. Cheng is called 金牙大狀. So both connected with the word gold. How come?
How come? Oh, I guess we have a similar name. Cheng Huan and Cheng Hai is my name.
唔同寫法嘅喎，唔好呃我。
But more seriously, I think our generation, we really were children of, to a large extent, intellectual of Western civilization. I was taught from a very early age about the importance of having a scientific mind and a great respect for facts. So we are truth seekers, we are fact seekers. We have tried very hard to remain objective. And we probably never stop learning, yeah. Because I meet Cheng Huan socially on a fairly regular basis, and I have noticed the same attachment to finding out more. Whatever we know is never quite enough.
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm correct, because I remember my Sifu told me once, as a lawyer, you never want to know the facts. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. 多謝晒謝清海先生。
Thank you very much.
咁咧，我哋第三位講者咧，我諗大家都好熟悉㗎啦。其實佢係我個區嘅立法會議員嚟㗎。有請梁美芬議員。咁其實佢本身咧自己都係一位執業嘅大律師啦，亦都係喺城市大學嗰度咧係副教授嚟㗎，喺法律學院嗰度。
好多謝阿清。我諗咧，如果大家係諗住戴口罩嘅，我就唔使要。
我哋決定個咪唔戴口罩啦。
開頭諗下咧，係咪可以唔戴口罩靚啲啊嘛？係咪貪靚？
咁啊，首先咁靚嘅放心啦。
首先好多謝，好開心為阿清好開心。因為咧，就當我知道係我有機會喺呢度咧，係將自己對阿清嘅一啲認識，可以同咁多嘅朋友係佢嘅好朋友。咁我頭先望落去咧，有啲亦都係我哋嘅畢業生，有啲係跟緊阿清，咁我好開心。首先咧，我一路揭阿清嘅書嚇，今日呢個書咧就係金牙大狀，同埋咧就係清夜捫心。咁咧就我自己識咗阿清咁耐，我喺97年回歸之前識阿清，應該話我哋都係有一批咧好傾得埋，有時可能嗰陣時仲係我都好中意去飲下嘢啊、傾下偈啊咁樣啊，因為咧我仲未從政嘅，咁啊做教授啊喺學術圈咧就多好多時間，大家喺度傾回歸之後會係點嘅嗰個法律。當時咧我就喺度諗，究竟阿清嗰個中文喺《星島日報》佢嘅中文點解會咁好嘅咧？咁我就想喺本書嗰度咧，想發現下究竟係咪佢讀過中文咧？咁因為我從來咧就未聽過寫中文，但係我睇佢嘅《星島日報》咧，真係好引人入勝。跟住睇佢呢本書咧，原來係更加引人入勝，所以我就一路睇晒，一口氣咁睇晒。其中有一樣嘢，我就覺得係一個大發現。原來阿清咧係做過傳媒，係新聞工作者，而且咧喺佢介紹自己嘅時候，佢係喺咁歷史嘅事件，係林彪嗰個事件裏邊咧，佢係第一個新聞從業員報導。我突然間覺得，喂，阿清 ，we are much closer。原來喺我哋嗰個事業嘅發展當中，我可能好多人唔知道，我第一份工咧係做記者嘅。咁我亦都好想咧係做阿清做過嗰份 Far East Economic Review 嘅。其實嗰陣時，因為我喺北京咧係讀書咧係跟許崇德係跟咗2年半咧，就係讀基本法。但係嗰陣時就好希望畢業咧就係做英文雜誌嘅記者。咁其實呢個係反映一樣咩嘢？係 personality。其實我哋都係求真，亦都好希望咧喺大事件裏邊、大時代裏邊咧，係講到向公眾咧係將我哋所知所講寫出嚟。 咁結果我都係喺中國其中最動盪嘅時間做咗半年，就喺 Hong Kong Standard。於是乎我就好明白阿清咧點解佢除咗打官司之外，佢嗰支筆係唔可以停嘅。佢係好希望將更多嘅故事同大家分享。今日我要分享阿清嘅故事咧，第一樣嘢咧就係好想講咧，如果係我嘅選區嘅居民，有時覺得我喺立法會講咗啲嘢咧都係啱聽，我有做過一啲嘢嘅話咧，就係好似阿清本書其中一句説話。佢話能人嘅背後咧，肯定有一批能人。而我好榮幸咧，我係做議員嘅期間，我背後其中一個能人咧，就係清洪。我一定要講佢幫過嘅故事。其實咧，阿清咧就真係我哋認識佢就唔係好似啲人淨係講佢淨係幫有錢人。咁有時我哋做立法會議員咧，啲市民好識嘅，你係律師、大律師咧，首先就梗係揾你啦 ，free legal advice。OK， 我哋做過 N 個 case， 但係當然咧，小事唔會去煩佢嘅，而係咧都係我覺得非常值得幫嘅朋友。喺我印象中咧，佢係第一個幫嘅咧，幫我先生就係 defamation。好多人唔知道咧，佢係有做誹謗。當你係佢嘅朋友，或者佢覺得一啲人俾人冤枉嘅話咧，佢義無反顧，第一時間佢會係 say yes。咁呢個咧我係經歷到嘅，因為佢個名一出，咁嗰啲想繼續去屈人嘅人咧，好快就收斂。呢個係我切身係阿清係幫過，係我嘅家人。最後可以贏咗上司嘅，因為咧大家如果熟悉城市大學法學院咧，喺早期咧我哋好多爭議嘅嚇，咁所以咧大家咧律師咧亦都係要為正義係作發聲，所以大家都唔會咧係願意俾人去即係去屈啦、去誹謗啦咁樣嘅。好啦，跟住咧係有3個個案咧，都係我認為係叫做 public officers or related。佢幫我幫過2個嘅區議員，咁都係 public officers 啦，都係同選舉有關嘅。因為咧，我其實咧係教 public law， 我喺城大係教 basic law 同埋 administrative law， 咁你都係講司法覆核啦嚇。如果 administrative law， 咁其中咧 election related 嘅 cases 好多咧，亦都會同 public law 有關嘅。咁2個我都覺得係俾人即係好係屈得好緊要。咁其中一個咧，我係臨尾我即刻我冇辦法，我一定要請阿清出山。呢位區議員咧，其實一生都做好多好事，係一個 social worker。但係咧，我就冇跟到佢嘅 early stage 啊，因為佢唔敢煩我。直到佢有一晚打俾我，佢話：美芬，你幫我睇住我啲屋企人啦咁啊！哇，嚇到我，即刻我就話：你有咩嘢你要俾我幫你？咁我就咧睇到佢個 case 咧，本來係一個 election related， 後尾俾人砌到變咗 criminal。咁咧就 social worker 如果有個 criminal record， 佢就死得㗎啦。佢覺得咁啊，真係咧就於是乎請阿清咧就好多新嘅 legal points， 最後咧就係幫咗呢一位嘅 social worker， 亦都咧係嗰個法官咧係同佢即係叫做翻案啊，即係話咧佢個人格人品係好。第2位都係 public， 即係同 public related， 咁亦都係俾人係好少嘅嘢 nitty-gritty。我認為咧香港真係好 political， 所以 nitty-gritty 又可以有個 case， 普通人一有個 case 又係死得嘅，即係唔係經歷唔到呢種官司嘅壓力。我都會睇到呢啲我同佢 work with together， 平時好強嘅人咧，我覺得佢有 depression 嘅，我隨時出事嘅。所以咧，我就又嗌阿清即刻就帶佢一批年輕嘅，佢真係提拔後輩嘅，一齊抄搬晒啲書出嚟，抄啲新嘅 legal point， 咁最後梗係贏啦。所以呢個金牌大狀嘅招牌咧，係絕對咧係完全係如假包換嘅。而第3，佢今日喺星島嗰一個，我都帶埋嚟添嗰個專訪咧，裏邊佢提到佢有3類嘅人，佢特別想幫。一個就係年青人冇刑事記錄，一個咧就係嗰啲人係犯咗事冇刑事記錄，佢盡量幫佢哋簽保守行為。 最後一類咧就係俾人屈嘅，俾人冤枉嘅。咁我覺得呢3類嘅 case 咧，其實我都係揾過阿清去幫手咧。佢係真係 a friend in need is a friend indeed， 係患難見真情。佢係好重情，而我更加睇到咧，就係我喺佢本書竟然睇序嘅時候，見到自己個名啊！哇！我突然間覺得哇，好感動啊！原來佢又記得我喺佢要提及嘅人裏邊有 Priscilla， 已經好開心。跟住咧 Professor Wang， 咁啊我先生嗰陣時喺城大係做法學院院長，佢又提埋。跟住佢最緊要仲提咧，喺2008年佢係好重視咧，就喺城大係客座嘅教授。點解佢會特別提？我係好明白，佢係好願意將佢嘅 knowledge 係同年青人去分享，係嗰種即係嗰個 passion 嗰團火啊！所以咧，阿清咧佢係真係除咗去寫呢啲專欄咧，大家真係睇得好，即係好 interesting 嚇。我覺得係了解好多佢嘅另外一面。其實咧，佢係將佢人生嘅 finding， 佢係同大家分享。咁啊 Priscilla 今日咧就係將即係因為時間所限，再講落去咧講一日一夜都未講得晒嘅。但係咧，我一定要講咧，就係佢喺佢嘅書裏邊仲有一句説話咧，就係呢個我想同大家今日嚟嘅朋友分享。佢話咧，一個封閉嘅思想咧，就好似一本書閂埋咗，合埋唔睇，其實就係木頭嚟嘅。咁所以咧，阿清嘅書咧裏邊係充滿傳奇，係 discovery 啊，簡直你會好多好多嘅 discovery， 就一定要翻開嚟睇，千祈唔好將佢合埋一齊，而應該鼓勵更多嘅年青人睇。除咗啲律師嘅年青嘅律師同行咧，其實係唔係律師，即將想做律師，追求緊人生嘅，我覺得都好值得睇。咁喺呢一度咧，就係千祈唔好做木頭，而係要翻開呢一本充滿傳奇發現嘅書。恭喜阿清，我哋係好開心可以喺呢度係有少少時間講我哋認識嘅清洪。多謝，
多謝晒梁教授。因為其實咧，我都同意你嘅講法。我哋成日講笑就係佢賺錢賺幾多個零啦。但係咧，我做過佢嘅 junior， 我都有幫佢做過一啲 legal aid 嘅 research， 或者係一啲 pro bono， 即係唔收錢嘅 research。咁但係咧，如果係 legal aid department 嘅同事喺度，你哋唔使驚。最後咧，我係只係做俾佢，係佢出嘅，唔係我淨係我做嗰啲嘅。所以咧，一定係佢自己再經過自己睇過啦 ，OK 啊先出。所以其實我哋講笑就係成日話佢係好多個零啫，佢係零，真係零佢都做。同埋都好似阿梁教授咁樣講啦，就係佢好重視年青人同埋新朋友去理解究竟佢諗乜嘢，佢好希望呢個社會咧，希望法律界都有進步嘅。所以咧，我都想睇下，其實今日係邊一啲朋友咧係自己報名嚟咗㗎？佢會好開心，即係一陣間你哋有機會嘅話咧，就俾佢簽名啦。佢會好開心同你傾下偈啊，同埋一啲 Q&A 嘅問題等等嘅喎嚇。OK， 所以千祈唔好客氣，唔好怕醜。OK，thank you，thank you，Mr. Lang。咁啊，Mr. Cheng 咧，亦都好想咧趁住呢個機會咧，多謝晒所有今日嚟嘅，特別係嗰啲自己都報名嚟參加嘅年青人嘅新朋友，同埋亦都好多謝我哋自己業界嘅朋友啦，亦都特別多謝咧就係司法部門嘅兩位法官啦，Mr. Justice K.K. Chan 同埋胡國興法官，同埋咧係我知道咧執法部門亦都有一啲朋友嚟咗嘅，多謝晒你哋。咁我哋請 Mr. Chan 出嚟，自己 give them a vote of thanks，give all of us a vote of thanks。Mr. Chan, please。This is your mic? Yes. This is your name in Chinese.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Oh, thank you very much for attending today. Especially the 3 speeches I've heard, all very, very kind of you. Most generous remarks. I'm not sure I'm worthy of all those remarks, but I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much, Granville, for all your kind words, many years of friendship, and your continued success in journalism. And to Chia Cheng He, my good friend, who I think I quite agree with your Freudian analysis of our backgrounds. We share much in common, and I'm most grateful to you for your kind words. And to Priscilla, my good friend, who I always admire enormously. She manages to have many lives in one life. I don't know how you manage it all. The last time we arranged to have dinner, she came, but she did not have sufficient time to eat the dinner. She's always in a rush, always in a hurry to fulfill all her public duties. And unfortunately, one of the persons who would like to be here, Rinsky Yin, who wrote a foreword, unfortunately is not here today. He's unable to come. I think you listened to all the speeches, so I shall be as brief as possible. I wish to thank, as Mani has, Mr. Justice Wu, an old friend. And we used to share chambers together when we started chambers in Prince's Building. I think in those days, you're more interested in the stock exchange than in the law. I remember you successfully defended yourself for tax reason before the, I think, Inland Revenue Department or something of that kind. But you have a very distinguished career, and I thank you very much for coming. And Mr. Justice Chan, who also shared chambers with me before, I remember he was in the legal department. Was it at the same time Granville was there, and then he decided to come out to private practice. And I think the first set of chambers you joined was my set of chambers. So this many years ago in the 1970s. So I have two very old memories to bring back. Two distinguished judges who shared chambers with me in the past. And I also wish to thank representatives from the law enforcement agencies today who have very kindly come here. And of course, I must thank my chambers, all my chambermates, especially Arthur and Robert, who are here today. The three of us try to guide the chambers through good and turbulent times. And I'm very grateful to them for their continuous support to maintain, hopefully, a good reputation for chambers. And I also wish to thank, especially, I'm trying to remember their names now. Oh, yes. Of course, I must thank Carmen Shui from Shengdao. And she has encouraged me all these years to write a column. Without her, there'll be no this evening gathering, because all these years she has persuaded me to write a column, and it's through her that I'm able to do so and able to be here today. And also I wish to thank, of course, Elsa and her team from Cosmos, who has worked very hard for this evening's success. And of course, I must pay a tribute to my good friend William Lam, who has been a very good translator in Chinese in those areas when translations are needed. And I wish to thank everyone present today for giving me support, especially Irene Tang and her friends, Nancy, and all those people who are here today to help me to make this hopefully a success. Very briefly, I should say about the book. It's in the three divisions. The first concerned my childhood days up to university level, very briefly in Malaysia, Singapore, and in Cambridge. The second section concerns cases I have done. Some cases I've done. I try to highlight perhaps the cases that touch the human hearts, perhaps, and the people who deserve to be helped. And the third section is a collection of articles I've written in Tsingtao all these years. Lastly, I'm sure you all listened sufficiently this evening. I wish to say that I am the chairman of two charities, one of which is for the promotion of the Buddhist faith, and the temple is the center is in Causeway Bay, and also it's in honor of my Tibetan master Zumang Rinpoche. And through the center, we help very poor students in different parts of the world, especially in China and also in places like Sikkim, and also especially young, poor Tibetan students. And secondly, also in my book, I mentioned the Init House Trust. Init House Trust, I would call her auntie. The Init House Trust is a charity that I'm the chairman of, and we help very poor students also to have overseas education, and we help students from Malaysia, Singapore, and Scotland. And I'm very proud to be chairman of these two charities. And I think it's very important that all of us should help the younger people to have a better education and to have better insight into life. I thank you all for coming tonight, and I'm most grateful to you all for all your kind words. Thank you very much.
Let's invite all the three guests, Mr. Granville Cross, Dato, Mr. Chair, and Ms. Leung. Please come up to the stage. 嗱，我哋頭先講過咧，就係我哋今日咧就係 up to you 喎，你可以問問題嘅喎。咁我哋咧就有啲問題咧，嗱呢度我手裏邊已經有啲問題㗎啦。誒點解冇寫名嘅咧？好啦。咁睇下 Mr. Cheng 或者任何你哋邊一位啦。首先第一條咧就係一個好長嘅一個，我諗係法律界嘅朋友問嘅。如果係邊一個問，我幫你問完之後咧，你哋就自己舉手睇下邊一個喎。Given that most barristers nowadays are all very academic, qualified with degrees from universities such as Oxford and Cambridge, in your opinion, what is the best way to distinguish yourself and make a name at the bar?
Professor
Whose question? Raise your hand. 咦，邊個㗎？誒呢個唔緊要，我哋知得㗎啦。OK， 好，
嘗試答下啦。嗱，我諗咧要 make a name 咧就
即係點樣去出名？
係啦，出名咧就唔係純粹靠你間學校。喺我過去28年教學嘅生涯咧，邊啲最後係可以出頭嘅呢？就係一開始嘅時候係最抵得諗嗰啲年輕嘅大律師，一啲有爭議性啊，就算我剛才提及嗰啲嘅案件啦，其實係好出名嘅案件。咁如果你係肯，可能係好平，甚至係有啲咧係義務肯幫人咧，一做咗之後，自然就出名。我睇咗好多成功嘅例子係，你真係個人咧要有心，唔係為咗出名而出名，而係真係你係將你法律嗰個嘅知識係肯幫人，咁就真係咧，你就會有機會做到大案，你就自然社會上咧就承認你係一個出色嘅大律師或者係律師。呢個係我自己有切身嘅經歷，亦都睇到好多嘅例子都係咁咯。
What about Mr. Granville Cross? Is it a bit different to make a name in the DOJ?
Well, I think that the qualities to be successful in the DOJ are very much the same as at the bar. I mean, you have to obviously have an ability to analyze problems, to have a logical mind. You have to be able to marshal a great deal of evidence, and you have to be able to present your case in a clear way that people can understand. In addition to which, you will hopefully have a great capacity for hard work. You won't mind burning the midnight oil, and you're prepared to go the extra mile where necessary. I think those are the qualities which successful advocates need to have, irrespective of whether they're in the public or the private sector. And also, if they're going to be really successful, then they have to be professional, I think. Not only upholding the values of the legal profession as a whole, which of course they must do on behalf of the community, but also if they do that, then they are true to themselves.
咁講咁長，其實我簡單講咧，就係總之咧，無論你喺 private 又好，喺 DOJ 又好咧，都係要勤力做嘢就得啦。嗱，頭先嗰個喊嘅 BB 都同意我哋咁講嘅 ，OK 。咁佢諗住喊下就大家明白佢邊個，終於要出咗去。OK， 咁但係咧，我諗 DOJ 特別咧就係話我幫阿 Mr. Cross 咧講emphasize 呢樣嘢咧，就係你一定要收工都好啦，即係本來你做政府工應該出幾多錢糧都好啦，你要加班就要加班，咁你會 make a name for yourself。OK， 咁 Mr. Cheng 咧 ，Does it matter which university you're from？
I prefer outside the opinion.
哦 ，OK，outside the opinion 啊 ，Mr. Cheng 想問下。拿督
No, I really don't have the expertise to answer here.
How do you apply your financial acumen to the law?
I don't know. Finance is quite different, but for what it's worth, I can share with you. I myself never been to college. I've been working since I was 17 years old. I only finished Form 5 in Penang, Malaysia. So I started working from there. And so I learned many lessons the hard way. As I mentioned to you earlier, I have a lot of respect for the scientific mind, for getting through from facts. I really spent a lot of time and energy in lifelong learning. I never stopped reading. Up to now, I'm now 67 years old. I'm still got 3-4 books going on at the same time. And also, I believe one lesson I learned is to avoid the, what do you call it? The money disease. Money disease, yeah. When I was younger, I realized that I should focus on being very good in what I do. In those days, I was a professional financial journalist. Later, I became a stock market analyst. And in the last roughly 30 years, I have been a fund manager. In all these journeys I travel professionally, I try not to pay too much attention to how much money I was making. Of course, I want to make money like everyone else. But I realized that the key to making money is to be long-term and to focus on professional excellence. Because I believe that you're very good at what you do. Whether you're a lawyer, you're a heart surgeon, a fund manager, the money will find you. You don't have to go and find the money. That's my theory. So I try really hard to master technical and professional excellence and very high degree of integrity in the jobs I did, and really find out all I could through self-learning. And in fact, to be frank with you, well, maybe it's partly Hong Kong, the money did find me. I definitely have no complaints right now about my finance. Thank you.
即係總之咧，簡單而言咧，就係喺香港咧係揾到錢嘅。我嘅翻譯係咪非常之好啊？所以我係冇讀過 interpretation， 冇做過 translation 嘅。Okay, thank you. So we understand Hong Kong is a good place for making money, for finding money as well. 好啦，咁跟住呢個問題咧就係啦，What is your biggest regret in your professional career？ 會唔會係俾法官鬧咧？俾阿胡官鬧咧，或者俾阿陳官鬧咧？
You can't ask Judging Hey because he has made all the money what he needs. So he's a model of a success. There's no disappointment. He said no, nothing. So what is your biggest regret, Granville?
The regret is we have no regret.
Well, it's very hard to think of any, actually. I mean, I've been very fortunate. I always wanted to become Queen's Counsel, and I was able to achieve that. I've always wanted to be the Director of Public Prosecutions, and I was able to achieve that. Probably the only thing was I wasn't able to go into practice with Cheng because my career led me in other directions. But really, no regrets.
My biggest regret, I must confess, is not being able to play the piano.
Why would you like to play the piano?
I think it's wonderful to be able to play the piano. I mean, I love music, and I love to be able to play. And I think it's a wonderful, just wonderful to be able to do that.
嗱，咁你哋
I
乖
must
啦
regret that.，
我哋啲青咪未夾錢買個琴啦
No,
知唔
it's
知
too
道
late. My fingers are getting too flexible now. What about Priscilla?
我諗嗰個問題同埋答案咧係反映其實我相信而家喺台上嘅咧，其實我哋好熱愛我哋嘅工作。咁所以我哋每做一個選擇嘅時候，就係我哋肯定其實 多個兩個選擇都係好嘅。譬如我要喺大學行出嚟去參選立法會，咁我就係少咗好多機會繼續做我好熱愛嘅喺大學嘅教學工作。又譬如我係喺再早期啲，咁我有機會參加一啲比較大嘅公法嘅 judicial review 嘅案件。咁我要諗，如果我唔係付出咁多時間喺社會嘅服務，可能我又會繼續接更多個呢我好喜歡嘅案件。但係咧就我諗你點解我哋四個好似呆一呆？你問呢個字咧，就因為我相信我哋每個人做咗選擇之後，我哋唔會望翻轉頭，而係我哋仍係好有嗰個熱情嗰團火，係做我哋選擇咗喜歡嘅工作，而嗰個工作亦都係完全都係冚唪唥都係 interrelated 嘅。即係我都諗緊，我其實我每一個選擇做嘅工作都係好我自己好熱愛，所以就其實就唔應該用 regret。而係你話你做咗呢一樣嘢，咁你另外嗰樣嘢你選擇咗，你就唔會同時有咁多時間去做另一樣嘢。即係我相信台上都係咁。咁但係一定要知道自己做咗個選擇，你就全程投入。其實就係應該話 no look back，唔好睇翻轉頭嚇，就 enjoy 你自己做嘅投入開心。我覺得呢一個係嗰團火係最重要嘅，真係嚇。
嗱，篤咧。
Oh,
do you
my
wanna
greatest
say-
regret?
Or
This is a question you can answer on many different levels, right? We should have better health, this and that. But for me personally, my biggest regret is that somehow, even when I was a kid, I didn't learn how to read and write Chinese, even though I'm ethnically a Chinese. Yeah. So this has haunted me all my life. To this day, I rely on translators to help me to invest.
But it was not your fault. I mean, you brought up in that way. I mean, Malaysia never had any relationship with China, I mean, until the 80s or 70s. And we had no choice in those days.
I guess why I mention this today is because I want to encourage all of you in the room to think about what I feel I miss, and I want to make sure that you understand you shouldn't miss this. You know, it's good to be bilingual or more than bilingual.
It's never too late。你嚟我哋 chambers 啦，我哋飲嘢咧係唔準講英文嘅，全部都講中文嘅，放心啦。OK， 好啦，咁跟住咧，好啦，呢條就啱啱調翻轉喎。What do you owe your success to? So it's about success。呢個點解會？你覺得你自己點解會成功嘅咧？Well, you say you have no regret and then you have no success. Don't tell me you have no success.
We are just too humble. I think we're cross to say it.
Let's start from the most humble one.
Well, I think you always have to have belief in yourself when setbacks come along, as they inevitably do in life. Don't let them get you down, which is, I mean, many people do actually walk away when they confront difficulties. But always remember that a lifetime is a long period of time, and that even though you may have a particular setback at one stage of your career, if you persevere, carry on, have faith in yourself, do your best, then things have a way of working out. I mean, let's take one example. I always remember in 1994, when I was the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, I applied to become, when a vacancy arose, and I applied to become the Director of Public Prosecutions, and I was told, in effect, that you can't have the post because it's being localized. It's got to go to a local Chinese lawyer. So this was devastating for me. The notion that even though I thought I was, up to doing the job, I was being told that because of my race, you can't have the job. And so this was devastating for me, and I thought that was the end of my career. But I decided to buckle down, hope for the best, continue doing my best for the department and indeed for Hong Kong. And then, astonishingly enough, after 1997, there was a complete reversal. The incoming government took the view that I was the best person to have the job. They applied the Deng Xiaoping doctrine. It doesn't matter if the if the cat is black or white, provided it can catch the mice. And I was given the job, which was, I mean, I was expecting to leave the Department of Justice in a year or so. But so this was a complete reversal of fate. And it showed that the decision that I had taken, not to let this destroy me, not to let it get me down, but to carry on giving my best and hoping for the best, it proved to be a wise decision. So in summary, I would suggest that prevail by perseverance. Don't let setbacks get you down, because things do have a way of working out in the longer term. So keep faith with yourself and hope for the best.
Mr. Cross 就係話咧，總之去多謝啲黑貓白貓，捉到老鼠嗰啲貓，就係咁啦。OK，Mr. 拿督咧。
In my case, again, many different ways to answer this kind of question, but I'll make it simple. In my younger days, I met a very wise man. He happened to be an American, and he had a formula for success. He wrote it down and put it in his wallet. He actually showed it to me. And it's a formula called the 3 Ps. P for Peter. 3 Ps. What do they stand for? You have to be positive, you have to be persistent, and you have to be patient. And he followed this formula with great success throughout his life. So it's always stayed in my mind, the 3 Ps. Whenever I'm in trouble, I say 3 Ps. Be positive, be persistent, and be patient. It has helped me a great deal throughout my life.
我喺有一次喺大學聽 talk 嘅時候，聽到楊振寧教授同我哋一批大學生講，如果你一入行嘅時候係揾到一個行業，或者你係有興趣嘅嗰個你將來發展嘅事業，係你未來30年你都喜歡嘅咧 ，you are there。即係話咧，我哋睇嘢要好長遠，即係你唔係第一份工就去到你自己最想做嘅嘢。而家我其實 relate to 你頭先 former 嗰樣嘢，我頭先諗翻清楚，我的確係有一啲嘢咧，我覺得如果我有更多嘅時間咧，我係一定會做嘅，即係好似阿清話咧，有機會去要彈鋼琴一樣。就係我係啱啱出嚟做嘢嘅時候咧，我係賣咗我第一個好細嘅 flat 咧，我嚟投入一個項目，係將中國嘅判決書咧翻譯晒做英文。咁嗰個咧亦都令到我攞咗一個獎項嘅。咁我做咗大概10年，我即係每一樣嘢起碼要10年先到少少成績。咁但係亦都係隨住即係我要去轉去做議員啦。咁我將呢一個 project 已經擺晒上 internet， 即係做咗一個好似英文嘅 China Law 嘅 LexisNexis。不過咧，我必須要將佢移到去北京，就交俾另外一啲人做。咁當然我自己係原創者，如果我係繼續去做嗰樣嘢咧，咁就算唔係話咩咧，都可能係 worldwide 係更加好嘅。但係而家佢係 survive，OK，but 就係唔係做到最大嘅。咁但係咧，呢一樣嘢就係我想同呢一位朋友分享咧。我哋做嘅嘢咧，其實係可能係意識嘅，但係到最後個 theme 咧，其實都係做緊同一樣嘢。即係譬如我真係熱愛法律，所以你做咩嘢，包括 publication， 即係你嘅 contribution to community， 全部其實都可能係同呢個 trunk， 咁你就真係會有成功嘅。而成功係嗰個理想唔係淨係喺你自己發生喺你自己，而係好多人會一齊 share 到你嘅成功嗰個成果同埋喜悅咯。我覺得係咁咯嚇。
多謝晒。What about you, Mr. Chang?
I think time is up.
Yeah, I actually want to. I know. I actually want you to wrap up by amending the question a bit to what do you think is the success of today's book launch? Tell our audience.
You are the MC. You should tell us.
But they would like to hear from your heart.
So
what is your feeling of the success of this book launch?
Because you are here.
Because you are here.
No. Anyway, I don't know the answer.
個 answer 其實好簡單嘅啫，因為佢太深啦。佢其實咧一路都係同我講，就係佢好衷心多謝大家今日咧係特登抽時間，因為我哋都知道咧今日天氣又唔係特別好啦，而家咧又係有疫情嘅關係，知道你哋咧係好 support 佢，但係記住啊，大家咧係有一個正能量，有一個 faith，and we will go forward. Thank you everybody. Thank you for coming here.